Don't gamble on your retirement. These are the 5 rules that actually matter. Retirement. Some people feel relief, others feel fear. But what most people don't realize, retirement doesn't just change your finances, it changes how your brain reacts. And just a quick note, I don't do sales videos, I don't do product reviews or referrals, just the checklist that I use. In aviation, we train because under stress, decision-making shifts into what pilots call their lizard brain. And that's the part of the brain that only has 3 basic responses. You fight, flight, or fear. Retirement triggers the same reactions. Some people fight it, they overreact, they start making aggressive moves because action feels like control. This is where the classic Las Vegas move shows up. Doubling up to catch up. Chasing yield, chasing a quick fix, trying to force a portfolio to do something in months what it was built to do over decades. Others flee. They avoid decisions altogether. They delay, ignore statements, or stay on autopilot because it feels familiar. And some people, they just freeze. No plan, no cash strategy, no rules. They do nothing and they hope it works out. None of these are planning. These are stress responses. And I'm not saying this from a distance. 2 years ago, before I retired, I made the exact same mistake. It was one of those investments that it was a sure thing. Well, the real mistake wasn't the market. It was trusting the relationship more than the process. I didn't demand accountability. I didn't insist on him having skin in the game. I overlooked it because of our friendship. And when the numbers went the wrong way, the temptation was to make it back fast. And that's what I call doubling up to catch up. If this sounds familiar, that's not a coincidence. Stress compresses judgment. That's why retirement, well, it needs rules. I'm not speaking from the position of a 35-year-old theoretical understanding of retirement. I live the handoff from paycheck to now portfolio. I've watched what happens when people try to wing it. Retirement doesn't need survival instincts. It needs a system. That's why you don't gamble with your retirement. You slow the process down. Move decisions out of the emotional brain, the lizard brain, into a checklist. Rule number 1, before you touch your portfolio, please make sure you've stabilized your cash flow. Because the fastest way to trigger fight, flight, or freeze is uncertainty about next month's bills. So we start with the simple target. You need a dedicated cash buffer that covers your spending for 1 to 2 years. In my previous videos, I created a 5-bucket portfolio. The 5-bucket buffer is in what I call the insurance bucket, or bucket 1. Bucket 1 does 2 things. It buys you time. It keeps you from selling long-term assets at the wrong moment. And once cash flow is stabilized, well, now we can talk about the portfolio with a clear head. And we can talk about rules instead of reactions. And if you have a pension, that's pure gold for this bucket. A pension is a paycheck that shows up whether you are up or down. It reduces the amount of cash you need to carry, and it reduces the pressure on the portfolio. Now, I'll be honest with you. I have a regret here. I didn't end up with full military retirement. That probably cost me 7 figures in lifetime benefits. I'm not sharing that for your sympathy. I'm sharing it because it proves the point. Guaranteed income streams are extremely powerful. And if you have one, it should be treated as a core component or part of your cash flow system. Now here's the reality check that most people don't see coming. Early on, my 5-bucket system was more theoretical than operational, because when you're fully employed, you can't truly stress test retirement systems. As long as the paycheck is coming in, well, you're insulated. And then one morning, you log into your company pay website and it says 0. That's the shocker. That's the moment it stops being math and starts being real. That's when you realize retirement is more than averages or long-term returns. It's about sequencing, timing, cash flow, and what happens before markets have time to recover. That's when the bucket system stopped being theory and started becoming operational. And that's when another quiet trap shows up. The The system looks backwards. Medicare premiums are based on income from 2 years ago. You can retire today, lose that paycheck tomorrow, and still be hit with higher premiums based on that income that you had 2 years ago. Same thing with taxes and Social Security withholding. In hindsight, I could have started positioning for this the day after I retired. That's another reason retirement needs rules, because the penalties for waiting are real and they show up quietly. Rule number 1 stabilizes cash flow. Rule number 2 protects your ability to enjoy that outcome. Rule number 2, health is wealth. How many times that people that subscribe to my YouTube channel have you heard me say that? I don't mean that as a slogan. I mean it literally. You cannot enjoy retirement in an unhealthy state. You can have the money, the time, the freedom, and none of those matter if your body won't let you use it. I said this in my cash-rich, time-poor episode last month. Money compounds slowly. Time depreciates rapidly. Health determines how much of that time you can actually have. I learned this before I ever retired. At age 55, my weight had ballooned up to 300 pounds. That was a wake-up call as my comorbidity life expectancy markers had literally fallen through the roof. I realized if I was going to retire, I wanted to retire capable, able to travel, able to move, able to enjoy the life that I was protecting financially. So I made a decision, not a resolution. Over the next 8 years, I went on a long, unglamorous journey. And if you want to know more about my 100 weight loss journey, let me know in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to put an episode together that represents that period. But I set a target. I lost over 100 pounds, not fast, but sustainably. Because this wasn't about looking good. It was about staying functional. Poor health is the fastest way to destroy a retirement plan. It limits your choices. It increases your expenses. And it shrinks your world. When health goes, optionality goes. I'll also be honest about what didn't work. A year before retirement, I trained like an Olympic athlete. That caused some major joint damage and caused me to rethink on what my health outlook should look like for me. At this stage, the goal is more durability, not domination. And if you're thinking you'll deal with your health after you retire, you probably won't, and that's thinking backwards. You retire into the body you built before you stopped working. That's rule number 2. Now for rule number 3. Before we dive into this rule, please take a moment to review my channel and playlist. I've created shows that go into detail on pretty much every one of these rules. So, what's your plan? Not a vague idea, an operational plan. Once cash flow is stable and health is protected, the next question is unavoidable. How is your money going to be handled? First decision, do it yourself or pay for advice. And let's jump into the next decision, taxes. Are you planning a Roth conversion? When? How much? Under what tax brackets? These are timing decisions, not just tax decisions. Next decision, withdrawals. Are you using a fixed rule, like the 4% rule, or a dynamic withdrawal, as I spoke about in one of my recent episodes? And a matter of fact, I did an episode called How to Protect Your Money When Markets Crash, because rigid withdrawal rules break people. Markets don't cooperate with calendars. Spending isn't flat. Withdrawals must adapt. Next decision, budgeting. You don't need perfection. You need realism. Next decision, medical planning. A shoulder replacement can cost you tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket. Not catastrophic, but disruptive if planned. Just your out-of-pocket for a shoulder replacement is around $10,000. And then, how about long-term care? Have you thought about that one? You don't have to obsess, but you do have to acknowledge. It punishes people for being vague. So rule number 3 is about clarity. Rule number 4, the meaning of life. That's not a joke. Yes, I did steal it from Monty Python. I grew up poor, and I believe this country gave me something phenomenal. Opportunity, structure, a chance to build a life through hard work. For decades, the meaning was clear. You showed up for work. You provided for your family. Then you got paid. Then retirement hits. The paychecks stop. The title disappears. The calendar opens up. That's not freedom by default. That's a vacuum. Retirement gives you optional time, and that creates a new question. If I don't have to get paid, what do I do? Retirement isn't about stopping work. It's about starting the right work. Work that fits the season of your life. Work that matters. Work not measured by a paycheck. If you don't search for meaning, you won't stumble onto it. Money without meaning doesn't feel like freedom for very long. And rule number 5, I call it the home plate. This is the part nobody prepares you for. Retirement isn't just a financial transition. It's a household transition. For years, the home rhythm was built around work schedules, travel, and time apart. Then retirement hits, and suddenly you're home a lot. That changes space, habits, expectations, decision-making. If you don't resist home plate on purpose, you drift into friction. Not because anyone is wrong, but because the operating system changed. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying retirement causes divorce. I'm saying it exposes cracks that were easy to ignore when everybody else was busy. That's why home plate needs rules, agreements, not assumptions. What does a good day look like for each of us? What time is together time? What time is protected solo time? Who owns which responsibilities now? How do we make those big decisions? What are we building next? Retirement isn't about stopping work. It's about starting the right work. And that includes the lifetime you're building together. If you stabilize cash flow, protect your health, create clarity, find meaning, and reset home plate, retirement stops feeling fragile. It becomes a life you can actually live. And let me leave you with this. You can be cash rich, but you can also be time poor. You can do everything right financially and still miss the point. Money compounds slowly. Time depreciates rapidly. Retirement isn't about escaping work. It's about choosing work that fits your life. Stabilize cash flow. Protect your health. Create clarity. Find meaning. Reset home plate. That's the checklist I use. Now, I will tell you that there's a full disclosure you'll find in the description section. I'm not a financial fund manager. I'm not a CFP. I'm not an accountant. I'm a retired airline pilot that loves researching finance. And let me say, I really appreciate you guys listening to my show. If you've got any comments, drop them in the comment section below. And please remember my motto that health is wealth and wealth is freedom. Get busy living. Thank you again.